But here's the one big question I think everyone's been talking about for a very, very long time, and I'm not really worried about that much. And that's the receiver 2 position, right? But here's something very interesting too that I found. Those last 4 guys, if you focus down the bottom, Scotty Miller, Michael Pruitt, Van Jefferson, Darrell Patterson had 9 receptions, 12 targets, and 38 yards. Those 4 blokes on the very bottom are all part of the Steelers' 2024 offense. Here we go, Steelers! Here we go! Back to Steelers Nation, Australia. Also, happy Independence Day to you guys out there. 4th of July in your morning. Hope you guys got a massive, massive day planned out there, having sherbets, eating pizza, eating wings, eating burgers, eating steaks. Happy 4th of July to you guys out there. Also, later on tonight, I think about your 8 p.m., 9 p.m., I'm going to do a premiere of the top 5. So do not miss that. But, however, I've been wanting to make this episode for about 4 or 5 days. And I want to talk about the Steelers offense this season and also the Atlanta Falcons offense last season in 2023. Now, Arthur Smith, no, he wasn't the offensive coordinator for the Falcons, but he has been the head coach for the Falcons for 3 years. And there is quite a few players that has been poached by or picked up via the free agent period that has come over from the Falcons. So Michael Pruitt, the tight end, Scotty Miller, Van Jefferson, who was a Rams guy, Darrell Patterson too, right? Played for the Vikings. Now he's like a kickoff returner / running back / receiver. And I thought about it. I was like, why don't I look back to the stats? Now, I haven't seen too many highlights. I did watch a few highlights of Van Jefferson play with the Rams. And I want to firstly start off on the quarterbacks. Now, so here are the quarterbacks. So Falcons last year in 2023 had Desmond Ridder, played 15 games, 249 completions, 388. So standard kind of season. Completion rate, 64%, 2,800 yards, 7.3. Right? Pretty average. It's kind of like what our season was last year with Trubisky. Rudolph near the end played much better than all the quarterbacks like Kenny Pickett. We know that stuff. Every Steelers fan right now knows that Trubisky sucked. Rudolph gave us the best chance to win near the end. And Kenny Pickett, when I was watching him and trying to hope that Kenny Pickett got better, it was a lot of hopium. I was just hoping that he would just be like, please, Kenny, just play some good football and it's your 3rd year coming up, all that kind of stuff, right? We now realize when you look back at it, Kenny Pickett was really a bad quarterback. And look, he may get better. I don't know what's going to happen with the Eagles. Does Jalen Hurts go down? I have no idea, right? But Kenny Pickett is now a backup and his career is kind of stalled. But you look to these numbers for the Falcons quarterbacks. Desmond Ridder, Tyler Heineke, he's like a backup too, played 5 games, 74 attempts, 136 attempts, 74 completions, and 54%, right? So between the 3 of them, plus Logan Woodside, he's been a backup for a long time, I think. He's always been a 3rd guy. So between those 3 quarterbacks, they only really got about just over 3,000 yards, right? Passing. So they weren't passing the ball that much. You know, there wasn't like an aerial attack. It was more going through Bijan Robinson. And as I show in a minute, it was going through the tight ends and really one receiver. But when you look to the Steelers offense, what I think is going to happen, as a Steelers fan, you guys out there too, it looks to me like it's going to be Najee Harris running behind this line. Do they play Broderick Jones at left tackle? Does the line mesh straight away? Will Zach Frazier win the battle at center? Hopefully. I hope so. But these guys got to get together over the next training camp, preseason, and the season. Things got to roll on, move forward, and they got to come together as a unit. That's going to be the exciting thing to watch and fun thing to watch. And also the camp battles with, do we see Troy Fautanu play right tackle? Where does Dan Moore go? All those kind of things are starting to lead up, right? So you have that with the quarterbacks, right? It's 2,000 yards, 3,000 yards. Nothing really too crazy. They had 12 TDs for Ridder, 12 interceptions, 5 TDs for Heineke, 4 interceptions. So pretty average quarterback play. Now, here's something interesting. When I go towards the running backs, right, and the 1-2 punch. So Brian Robinson last year, he was the, I think, number 1 overall pick maybe a few years ago, or 2 years ago. I'm not too sure. But he had 214 carries, 976, 4.6 average. So could that be Najee's role? Najee 1A, Jaron Warren 1B. Does Najee Harris go out there and get 1,200 yards, 1,300 yards, a few TDs, and start to be that powerhouse guy going into his fourth year? And look, the Steelers didn't get his contract, but maybe next year they pick it up, right? So Bijan Robinson, he was their main back. Their second back was Tyler. I'll pronounce his name wrong. Algier, running back, 186 carries, 683. Two-headed monster. 1A, 1B. You had Robinson there for 1A. You had Tyler Algier, 1B. He had 186 carries, 683, 3.7, 31 yard longest. And when I went to the TDs, I cut out. But in the TDs, they had 4 touchdowns each. And Desmond Ridder had 5, right? Do you kind of see the similar, plays where Arthur Smith offense, head coach of the Falcons, yes, he didn't do too well over there in terms of record, but as offensive coordinator, he's now got Najee Harris to be his Robinson and Algier to be his Warren. And the guy he brought over, and here's the real exciting part that kind of like makes me think about the next few moves that's going to happen for this offense, right? The next thing is we had Drake London. He was their main target. And the number 1 overall receiver got 69 receptions, 110 targets, 905 yards, 13.1 average, 2 TDs. But if you can see at the very top, and I don't know if you guys are on your phone or your laptop or whatever it may be, if you can see at the very top, up this part here, right, this is where things get really interesting, and which this is kind of like maybe a future insight what might happen for the Steelers offense with the tight ends. Because at the very top, you had Kyle Pitts there, tight end. He played 17 games. Jonnu Smith, tight end, played 17 games. They had combined together 103 catches and overall targets. Here's the big thing. They had 60. 160 targets between 2 tight ends. What do we think is going to happen this year in training camp, preseason, and the real season that Russell Wilson, when he should win out, hopefully win out the number 1 thing? And look, if Fields going to have a crack too, but Russell Wilson will be number 1 quarterback. The Arthur Smith offense, from what I see and what other fans and beat writers out there have been talking about, it looks like they're going to use the tight end a lot. Freiermuth will be your guy. This guy here, you'll see that show later on today. He'll be your guy, Freiermuth. And also the other tight end, so Kyle Pitts could be the Freiermuth. Jonnu Smith could be the Darnell Washington with 70 targets, right? I'm not saying exactly they're going to use Darnell Washington to have 70, 80, 100 targets, right? But you're still going to see those 2 tight ends. They might look Michael Pruitt because it has a chance to make the team. Rodney, is it Williamson? I think he has a chance to make the team along with special teams too. They could carry 4 tight ends in this offense. This could be 4. Everyone's keep talking about receiver 2, but they could carry 4 tight ends in this offense and also play 2 running backs with Warren and Najee. There are blokes right now to get the ball to Warren, get the ball to Najee, get the ball to the tight ends in Arthur Smith's offense with this bloke, Muth, and going back to the receivers. So last year in 2023, Kyle Pitts had 90 targets. Smith had 70. That's 160. They had 6 TDs between them, right? They fed the ball a lot too, as well, to Bijan Robinson, who had 86 targets. Who's the other bloke that needs to get involved as well? Najee Harris. Do you see how things are kind of lining up and panning out? But here's the one big question I think everyone's been talking about for a very, very long time, and I'm not really worried about that much. And that's the receiver 2 position, right? But here's something very interesting too that I found out in terms of reps and stats, things last year. Scotty Miller, he had played 17 games, 11 receptions. So maybe he was more. I don't know from factual evidence if he was a teamer, but maybe he was a teamer. But he was played sparingly. He played 17 games, 11 receptions, 16 targets. So he's obviously going to have a big camp to make this team. He's got to push off, Calvin Austin or is it Watkins? Is it Quez? I've just forgot his name. Quez Watkins. He's got to fight some guys off like that to make the team, because obviously he didn't make a very big impact in the Falcons offense with 11 receptions, 16 targets, and 2 TDs. Right? Michael Pruitt as well, tight end. He had 9 receptions, 12 targets, and 110 yards, right? Here's something crazy, though, right? And teams as well. So Cordero Patterson, when I go to his stats, also running the rock, and he might be a third down running back, which could be very exciting. He ran the rock for 50 times for 181 yards, 3.6, and his longest was 18 yards. So the reason why I bring all this stuff up is I don't overly think there's going to be that pure panic, that media panic mode around receiver 2. When this offense looks like it's going to be using the tight ends like they did in Atlanta, going back to these receivers here, tight ends Pitts and Smith. The top 3 receivers who caught the ball the most were Drake London, who he was the number 1, Kyle Pitts, who he was the number 1 tight end, and Johnny Smith was the second number tight end, right? And then also they fed in the running back. Who's going to be getting the ball a lot in this offense? George Pickens, Najee Harris, Freiermuth, Darnell Washington, and maybe a bit of a mix of like Connor Haywood too, right? And of course, we're going to see Darnell Washington block. He's a massive unit. He's 6'7". But if you can get that guy near the red zone, 15 yards out, and he can lay up there in the air, hang time, catch that ball from Russell Wilson in a play action pass, running around crazy right to the end zone, feed it to Darnell. So that's what says to me it's really exciting. Is the fact that you have a number 1 receiver, 2 tight ends, and a running back. And the other 2 receivers all year was Mac Hollins, receiver, played 13 games. He had 18 receptions, and Hodge, receiver, 14. So this whole nonsense around receiver 2, it doesn't overly matter, because what I see from these stats and what it's telling me is that Arthur Smith likes to use the two tight ends. Get those blokes the ball. If that doesn't work out, get the ball to the running back and make space. And Van Jefferson, yes, he can carve out a role. But there was also one interesting thing that I found out with Van Jefferson. So I looked up his stats too. And when I go to Van Jefferson, snap count. So Van Jefferson Rams snap count on Pro Football Reference. By the way, he got traded. There was a certain time that Van Jefferson was traded largely from the Rams when all their players started coming back. And on the Rams at the time, Puka Nacua, all those blokes, Cooper Kupp, and there was no real room for Van Jefferson. The guy's only like 28, and we haven't really talked about him that much. I know DK Sports talked about him the other day, but here's another interesting thing. So Van Jefferson played 12 games. However, he only had receptions of 12 in the Falcons. Now, I'm hoping he can have a breakout year or another successful year, right? Because in this, I went down to one of the advanced stats in where you find snap counts. And in 2023, right, he had, for Atlanta, he played 45% of the snaps, 356, right? So he was on the field. He played 356 snaps. He was on the field. But when you go back to these other stats, what I just had up here, they were throwing the ball to Drake London, Pickens. They'll throw on the ball to Kyle Pitts, Freiermuth. They'll throw on the ball to Johnny Smith, Darnell Washington, or the Atlanta Falcons will throw on the ball to Bijan Robinson, Najee Harris. This is why I'm not worried. I'm not worried at all. I'm excited to see what the Smith offense does with these players, and does he carbon copy the same way he did it with the Falcons. He's got 4 Falcons that are going to come over and play for us in Cordero Patterson, in the kickoff return, running game, receiver. Van Jefferson, maybe he can carve himself out to be a receiver too. But last year in 2023, in the Atlanta Falcons offense, they used more tight ends, the number 1 receiver, Pickens or Drake London, and they use a running back. I'm not nervous at all. I'm kind of excited for this team. And I'm keen to see Scotty Miller, Pruitt, Van Jefferson, and Patterson, because they're all part of the Atlanta Falcons offense last year. And we know how good Najee Harris is. We know how good Warren is. And hopefully some other blokes to step up in the training camp. Anyways, guys, that's my show for today. I wanted to, when I looked over this, it was just like a brain like moment, like, oh my goodness, this is crazy. Because the stats back it up that they're going to use in this offense. They're going to use a tight end a lot. Hopefully they can use a tight end with Freiermuth and Darnell, and they can be like just running down the field, getting Washington, 25 yards, getting Frymouth 40 yards, getting Pickens 25 yards, and then they also feed the rock to Najee Harris and Warren. I'm excited. I'm really excited to see this team and see how it pans out. All right, Steeler Nation, thank you for listening to another 15-minute show. It was an awesome show talking about the Atlanta Falcons offense. Maybe we have a bit of an insight what happens in 2024 from the past offense of 2023 for the Falcons.
I'll see you guys later.
Hey, Road. Put the light. Left the light on. See you later. Bye.